Before there was light, there was only darkness, and a voice. 10 stories from the Bible, one after another, 10 different centuries, 10 different kinds of trouble, and every one of them begins right here, at the very first morning the world ever had. God spoke, and light came running across the water like something that had been waiting a long while to be let in. He hung the sun and the moon. He set each star in its place, one by one, and gave every single one of them a name. He filled the sea with silver fish, and the whole sky with wings. Then he made a man and a woman, and gave them a garden to look after. God looked at all of it, and called it very good. Joseph's brothers threw him into a pit, and sold him for the price of a servant. He was 17 years old. It started with a coat, bright as a market stall, a gift from a father who loved him best, and his brothers hated the sight of it. In Egypt, he was a slave, and then a prisoner, and 13 years went by. But Joseph could read dreams, and one night Pharaoh had a dream that nobody in all his kingdom could explain. 7 good years, then 7 hungry ones. Joseph filled the storehouses, and when the famine came, Egypt had bread. And the brothers who sold him came begging for food, and he wept and fed them and forgave every one of them. An entire nation stood at the edge of the water, and behind them they could already hear the chariots. For 400 years Egypt had owned them, and worked them, and buried them. Then God sent Moses back to the palace he had run away from, and 10 plagues later, Pharaoh finally let the people go. Moses lifted his staff over the sea, and the water split, stood up on both sides like walls, and left a road of dry sand straight through. All night long they walked between the waves, with the sea standing still on either side of them. And when the last of them reached the far shore, the water came home again, and they were free. The city of Jericho had walls so thick you could drive a cart along the top of them, and gates that had been shut for weeks. God told Joshua exactly how to take it, and the plan involved no ladders, no battering ram, and no fighting at all. This was the plan. Walk all the way around the city once a day for 6 days in a row, with the priests and the ark out in front. And the whole way round, say nothing. The people of Jericho watched from the top of the wall and laughed themselves sick. 6 days of nothing but footsteps in the dust, and not one single word. On the 7th day they went round 7 times. Then the trumpet sounded, and every person there shouted at once. And the walls of Jericho, those enormous, unclimbable walls, fell down flat. The furnace was heated 7 times hotter than usual, and 3 young men were thrown into it with their hands tied. The king had built a golden statue and ordered every person in Babylon to bow down to it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would not. They told him, "Our God is able to save us from your furnace, and we believe that he will. But even if he does not, understand this, we are still not going to bow down to your statue." So into the fire they went, and the king leapt up off his throne, because he could see 4 men walking about inside the flames. They walked out without a burn on them, not a singed hair, not even the smell of smoke on their clothes. There was no room anywhere in Bethlehem, so the King of the world was born in a stable and laid in a feeding trough. It began months earlier, with an angel standing in a doorway in Nazareth, and a young woman named Mary, and a promise so enormous that it sounded impossible. She and Joseph traveled 80 miles south to Bethlehem because the emperor wanted everybody counted. They arrived late, and every door they knocked on was already full. Out on the hills that same night, shepherds were sitting with their flocks, the lowest job there was, and the whole sky above them tore open with angels. And wise men followed a star for months, and knelt down in a stable, and gave a baby their treasure. Halfway through the wedding, the wine ran out, and in that town, that was a disgrace the family would never live down. Jesus was a guest at that wedding, sitting at the table with everybody else, and his mother made her way over and told him quietly what had happened. He said his hour had not come yet. She simply turned to the servants and said one thing: "Whatever he tells you to do, do it." There were 6 stone jars standing by the door for washing, each one big enough to hold 20 gallons. He said, "Fill them with water, right up to the brim." And they did. And when the master of the feast tasted it, it was wine, and better wine than anything they had served all night. It was the middle of the night, and the men in the boat saw something walking toward them across the top of the water. The storm had come up fast, the way it does on that lake, and they had been fighting the waves for hours. They thought it was a ghost and cried out in fear. But it was Jesus, and he called over the wind, "Take courage, it is I." And Peter shouted back, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you." So Peter climbed over the side, and he walked. On the water, in a storm, he actually walked. Then he looked at the waves instead of at Jesus, and he began to sink, and a hand caught him at once. A man was robbed on the road to Jericho and left half dead in the dust. 2 religious men saw him and crossed to the other side. It was a lonely road, 17 miles of steep, stony switchbacks, and everybody who used it knew perfectly well that thieves waited along it. Then a Samaritan came by, a foreigner, someone that man's people would not even speak to. And he knelt down in the road and bandaged the wounds and lifted the stranger onto his own donkey. He paid for a room and told the innkeeper, "Look after him, and whatever more it costs, I'll pay it when I come back." A son asked his father for his share of the inheritance early, which was the same as saying, "I wish you were dead." He took the money to a country far enough away that nobody knew his father's name, and spent every last coin of it on nothing that lasted longer than a night. Then the money ran out, and a famine came, and he ended up feeding pigs and envying what they ate. So he started home, practicing an apology the whole way, hoping only to be taken on as a hired man. But his father had been watching that road every day, and while the boy was still a long way off, his father ran. From the first morning of the world to a father running down a road, God keeps his promises. If this story touched your heart, follow and subscribe for frequent Bible stories.